One of the things that she said, when she said it, I started smiling, was the fact that these tech guys are very infectious. One of the companies her company just invested in, Kobo 360, Obi, as of 3 years ago, I went to interview him in Iwaya. By the way, I run a TV show on Channels TV called Tech Trends. So over the years, I've done a couple of interviews, about 320 now. She was my third guest on my show. So 3 years ago, I went to interview this guy in Iwaya, right in the heart of Yaba. And this guy from that time was telling me that CFA were building a unicorn. CFA, this is a multi-billion-dollar business. CFA, each time I call him, we're building a unicorn. This company will grow. This company will scale. So at a point, I got tired of it, like literally, I got tired of it, But today, the last round was $30 million, So on that note, I'd like to ask Mrs. Johnson, so if you have a question, please write it down and help me make my job easier. I mean, if you ask your questions, then I won't have any questions to ask. I'll just simply read out what you're asking. But the first question I would like to ask Mrs. Johnson, to just sort of explain better, is a question around the quality of idea. People would say that there are ideas everywhere. How do you go about finding that idea that has quality enough for you to now flavor innovation and technology around, to be able to scale?
What we look at is an idea that is interesting for us in telecom is one that is addressing what we call a big challenge in Nigeria or in Africa. And it could be a challenge around access to health. I gave that example. It's a big challenge because we just can't figure out how to give 200 million Nigerians access to quality healthcare or education. Or if you take the example of Obi, if you look at many industries in this country today are very fragmented. So anything that is looking at using technology to streamline, an industry, create value by streamlining that industry, taking out all the inefficiencies. That's the way that we evaluate good ideas. So whenever you're thinking of a business, just think to yourself, what challenge is this business solving? Because if it's not solving a particular, if it's not solving a particular challenge or addressing a particular need, then it's just an idea, and you really can't build a business around that. So you can ask your question, what challenge is it solving? Or what need is it meeting? And so if the idea can answer any one of those questions in a couple of sentences, then for us it becomes an idea that can actually scale into a business. That's what we look at. And of course, when you look at that, what challenge is it solving? Is it solving a challenge for 10 people, 10,000 people, or 10 million people? That's when it starts to get interesting. If it's solving a challenge for hundreds of thousands of billions of people, then it becomes interesting for us.
Okay, thank you very much. Still on the questions, I don't know, who would help us, planning committee, how can we get the questions if people have questions? Okay, please, you see the ushers around you. If you have any questions, please write it down. We have another 15 minutes to do this, so write your questions down and then I'll help you ask Mrs. Johnson at the point. So now, traditional businesses, like you've mentioned, have that challenge of trying to use technology. Now, what would you say is the best way for them to leverage technology, particularly in terms of raising funds? Because, today it seems like... Hello, okay, no. So today it seems like the funding, a lot of the funding is happening around those who are in the tech space. $20 million, $5 million. I mean, when I could tell my friends who do regular businesses how these guys are closing rounds, they're like, what is happening in that space? So how can traditional businesses leverage this momentum to sort of, take advantage of it as well to also scale their businesses?
I mean, first of all, I think that there's a heightened interest in tech. So that's why it's getting a lot of the attention and a lot of the funding. But that is not to say that there's not funding available for the non-traditional companies. And I think it's the same thing. It's the narrative. It's how you present your business. The narrative around I'm solving a big challenge for a large number of people, and in doing that, I can show you a path to revenue and a path to profitability. Because I think that many of the non-traditional businesses, like I said, many non-traditional businesses don't really think about the challenge they're solving. You need to rethink your narrative, because we look at, if it's a traditional business, what I'm doing is, I'm making bags, I'm making cakes, I'm doing a particular thing. But if you try and look at it and say, you know, maybe I'm making cakes, for instance. I'm a baker. But what I'm doing is that I'm making bespoke cakes. I make them to order. I make them to deliver. I make them across the country. So you've got to have the narrative that makes it interesting, because anybody that's giving you money is not just giving you money so that they can get their money back with interest. They're giving you money so that they can get their money back at a multiple return. So you've got to be able to have the narrative from day one of a business that is, again, back to that word, that is scalable. Because if it's not scalable, then nobody, the venture capitalists or, you know, or the SME funds, they're not interested. Because that's what they're interested in, is how do I double or triple my money in 3 or 5 years? And so you've got to think about that from day one.
Okay, this one is pretty interesting. And the guys, or the person says, what are the factors that go into the valuation of a business that is just launching to make it a unicorn?
So that's the problem when you think you're building. I think let me just rephrase the question to say, you know, what are the factors that go into valuing a business? You know, the unicorn will come later, and the kind of things you look at when you're valuing a business is that I'll use it's a very simple model. If I'm looking at a company, and the entrepreneur has given me a 5-year financial model that says that shows their revenue over the next 5 years, I look at that revenue model, and the way that companies are valued, at least in most markets, is that you look at either revenue. When you IPO, you're doing at multiples of your revenue, or you're doing at multiples of your EBITDA, if you understand that, earnings before income tax and depreciation. And so when you look at a company, you say that, okay, this company can earn, say you're earning, this company can generate 100 million naira by the year 2025. And you look at, you're going to invest, you're going to give the entrepreneur 10 million naira today. And you look at companies in that industry that have exited successfully, maybe not in Nigeria, but you look at companies in that industry, and they exited at 5 times their revenue. So you say, okay, if that is a general trend, that's how people value these companies. So a company that is making 100 million revenue, by the time I want to exit, will be valued at 500 million naira, 5 times the revenue, 500 million naira. So if I put in 10 million naira today for X% of the business, then I can make a X times multiple. So that's how they value companies. So a lot of it depends on, to answer your question, a lot of it depends on how you think about your path to revenue. How do you build your financial model? And I know many entrepreneurs run away from that. Build your financial model. Let us see, okay, on day 1, I'm going to be serving 10 customers. Year 2, I'm going to be serving 20,000 customers. They're going to be paying me this on average. And so therefore, my revenue is this. So you have to have that revenue path, because that's the way that companies value the business. It's not valued based on your aspiration or your hopes or your dreams. It's valued based on hard numbers that we all can believe, and then make a valuation based on that.
Thank you, ma'am. So this question, the person feels that sometimes it's expensive for SMEs to access technology or use technology, and he says, or the person says, how can we reduce the cost of technology to SMEs? So the question is it expensive to use technology?
I don't think so. And you really have got to look at, I gave the example of cloud-based services and also subscription-based services, and that makes it cheaper for entrepreneurs. Now, the point I want to make is that you have to think about what you want to invest in. Any business that is in Nigeria today, I think there are 2 things you need to worry about, that you need to invest in. It's talent and it's technology. And that's where you have to put the most of your capital. Even when we look at these tech companies, there are 2 things they look at. First of all, they say, what are you going to do with this money? I'm going to bring in new talent, I'm going to hire the best people, and I'm going to continue to develop and invest in my technologies. And that's what you need to do for the non-traditional, non-tech businesses. So don't think about it as being expensive. It's an investment that you have to make in your business to generate the revenue. So I don't know what numbers you're looking at, but I know that it is much cheaper for SMEs to acquire technology than it's been in the past.
All right. So this one, I'll rephrase this one a bit. I think the person mentioned a bit about franchise model, but I think if you ask me what I would say the basis for this is what should entrepreneurs do about IP rights? Because the person says, if your employee goes to steal your idea and replicate it, what would you do? Things around that. So IP.
IP. So the qualitative answer is that if it's your idea, and it's a good idea, trust me, nobody will be able to execute it the way that you will. So don't worry about it. Many entrepreneurs worry about this. That, I employ people, and within a year they've learned the business, they're going to set up their own. It's fine. The more the merrier. But I can assure you that they can never do it the way that you have done it because the idea didn't come from them. So honestly, don't even spend a minute thinking about it because there'll be copycats. Chances are your own business has copied somebody else's business somewhere anyway. So there will always be copycats. Just focus on execution, focus on bringing in the best talent, even if they will leave, and just build your business. But then there's the technical part of it, which is if you really think your idea is that innovative or that different or that unique, go and register it. Go and register the rights. But what you find is that it's not an easy process because in registering your IP, you've got to prove that nobody else has done it before. So it's got to be really, really unique. And I don't think there are many businesses, as I see them in Nigeria today, that can actually have an IP to register because they're not that unique or they're not that different. So don't worry about people copying you. They will copy you. If it's not your employer or your employee, somebody out there is going to copy you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, in the tech world, we say execution. It makes all the difference. So this question says, are you an investor? That's you. And how can we get investment from TLCom Capital?
Yes, I'm an investor, but we do only tech-enabled companies. So if you're not a tech, and by tech-enabled, I don't mean that you use an accounting package. By tech-enabled, I mean that tech is a critical core part of your business. You're building a tech platform, and you're going to, and that's your business. So we do only tech. So if you're a tech business, please see me after.
So I mean, what if let's say a bakery has a mobile app? Is that a tech-enabled?
well, yes, in the sense that if that mobile app is the way that they make their money, they generate their revenue, then it's a tech business. Because if you take Kobo, for instance, it's a logistics business. But what is driving them is the app that they have to match demand and supply. So yeah.
Okay, all right.
If your business cannot survive without the technology, then yeah.
Yeah, and every day it's becoming, I mean, just think about what the likes of Facebook and Google and the rest are doing with AI, automation, artificial intelligence. It's getting scary. So it means that every business should actually find a way to use technology. This person says, what do you think, even though I think you have answered it a bit, but what do you think, how do you think a one-man business can grow to become a big multinational? I think,
it can't.
I don't know.
It can't. Because, I mean, it can't, simply because of what I said earlier, which is that you need talent and you need people to help you scale that business. You just can't. And I guess when you say one man, what you're saying is one man in terms of I control and I own everything. Basically, you can't scale a business like that. It's just impossible. Okay, so this says, how do you balance innovation and sustainability? Case study, the HMO receiving, the case study of Reliance that you mentioned. Okay. So the person is asking, how do you balance innovation and sustainability? Okay, I'm trying to understand the question. Sustainability in what sense? That you can actually build a business out of this innovation? Well, the question is that can they sustain that model? So what if multiple people come and take advantage, I don't pay the following month, what happens sort of to the business? So, you start enjoying your premium, what you paid for, immediately you paid your first month. And then you don't pay the second month. Yes, exactly. Well, this is where technology comes in. And this is where Reliance, I'm doing their marketing plug for them. This is where Reliance comes in. So for instance, if you start paying your monthly premiums, you get cover immediately. So you get cover maybe for one hospital admission, 3 trips to the doctor, and all of that. But by the time you pay your second, that's what you get for that particular premium. Once you stop paying, the day if your subscription is due on the 13th of the month, and it doesn't come on the 13th or the 15th, they cut you off. So when you go to the hospital and you present your card, the hospital will tell you that sorry, you're no longer on this HMO, because in the past, because everything with other traditional HMOs was manual, they would have these premiums. You could continue to go to the hospital because they hadn't updated their records. But with a company like Reliance that is complete tech-enabled, they will know from day one, from whenever you're supposed to pay that you haven't paid, you get cut off from that day. If the hospital treats you, the hospital gets the payment for the treatment almost within 24, 48 hours. So that's how you build sustainability, and that's how subscription services work. You can't have subscription on a manual company because it takes time for you to understand, have they paid, haven't they paid, can you check my alert, check my balance? But they don't have to do that. They know that because they've got all your details and they can tell from the day you're supposed to pay, you haven't paid and you get cut off. So that's where the sustainability comes in.
Okay. All right. I'm in the education sector. How can technology address the large masses that may not be able to access quality education? That's not an innovation question, but hey.
Well, I mean, it is, because basically it's actually one of my favorite topics, in the sense that we have so many children out of school. We have so many children that are in school that are not getting quality education, and that's because of the quality of the teachers, or the quality of teaching. And so there are models around innovation that, they talk about, one teacher, several classrooms, kind of thing we try to do in government, where you have one teacher in a room that is videoed, and that video is basically beamed to many different classrooms, because this teacher is just much better at explaining concepts and principles than any other teacher. So you get this one person and you put him in hundreds of classrooms, and that's what's happening. If you look at Khan Academy and all these different Khan Academy, Udacity, all those, this is what it's innovation in education. And they're just showing that there is more than one way to teach people. You don't have to be in a classroom and teach people. You can actually be somewhere millions of miles away and teach people. You can put the content on a mobile phone and they can look at it and refer to it every so often. So yes, there's innovation in education. And actually education is one of the areas that we are actually looking at in terms of investing in tech companies that are focused on education.
Yeah, because honestly and truly, we really cannot educate the number of people out of school today at all levels. So we need technology. This talks about, you mentioned a one-click online transaction when you're giving the Instagram example, and this person is asking, what do you suggest we do in a sector where 80% do not have access to the internet? I mean, not even have smartphones.
Not even have smartphones. Oh, okay, great. That's a good question. Yeah. So, yes, it's true that there are lots of mobile phones, but no smartphones. Well, what you have to do is that, I made the point that you've got to adapt your business to what your consumers want or what they have. So if all they have are feature phones, you've got to adapt the business. And the example that I will give is the banks. The banks started up with branch banking, and you know how difficult that was. And then they moved to sort of online banking, and that really wasn't that successful. And then they moved to USSD banking. And that's where you could conduct your banking business with a USSD. That's SMS. You don't even need connection to the internet. It's SMS. You do your transaction, you get an SMS back, you send, star 737, star 33, whatever. That was basically banking with SMS feature phones. And the number of people with bank accounts just skyrocketed. And now they're coming back to people that have smartphones. So you look at what the likes of Guarantee Trust are doing. It's now around moving those people that were SMS-based, who are now being able to afford smartphones, and bringing them onto their online banking platform. So the point is that, yes, it's true that not everybody has a smartphone. So if you're building your business around a smartphone, maybe it's not smart. But there are many things that you can do on feature phones as well, and you can try and build that into your business. So. But the rate of growth of people with smartphones is increasing every year. And so while you're looking at the SMS-based business model, you also need to have in mind that you may need to migrate to the internet-based business model very, very quickly.
Okay, so quickly, this person says that, I'll jump this one. This person is asking for 3 accounting package. You can get it online. I can tear a couple of them online. Yeah, a couple of them. So this person says, I actually saved this one for towards the end, and it says, as a former minister of communication technology, what do you think successive government has failed to do to develop programs aimed at the SMEs, such as the UWIN program that is now dead?
I knew that kind of question would come somewhere along the line. Well, different administrations have different ideas on how they want to support SMEs. And so within the Jonathan administration, of which I was a part of, it was around UWIN. And UWIN was basically, for those of you that don't know, was a kind of a business plan competition where young people around the country will be asked to submit their business plans, to be judged by independent panelists, and depending on how well you did, you then get a grant from government. Very successful program, by the way, yeah. And has been replicated in other parts of the world. Now, this administration comes along, and they have a different approach to it, and the approach to it has been the trader money, the market money, but again, focused on SMEs. where it's not so much the people because you win was for people like for people in this room, the well-educated who could write business plans and who could actually develop and pitch those business plans. It was developed for that sort of middle income, middle class. I think the trader money and the market money have gone down a level further because entrepreneurship is required at all levels. And so they're looking at people that can't get up and that can't write a business plan and talk about financial models, but people that have viable businesses and are serving a need. So it's not that any one of them is right. Both of them I think are correct. The only shame that I see and what really is frustrating is that we don't carry things from one administration to the other. Because I think that UWIN could have been implemented side by side with the trader money and the market money and all this. And it could have been side by side. So you've got one program that is looking at the entrepreneurs like people in this room, and there's another program that's looking at a different set of entrepreneurs. And those two things together I think would have made a big impact. But it is what it is.
All right. I once had a prayer point that Mrs. Johnson would be brought back as the Minister of Comtech. But it never happened.
My own prayer.
That was the prayer I had, but it never happened. So the industry where I operate technology, we went from like this, we went to like all low. I'm saying this, yeah, I know, don't worry, it's me that's saying it. This one says, I have two more questions and we're done. This one says, what if it's a business that doesn't solve any problem, or so that doesn't solve a challenge per se, but is just improving something that's existing? So for example, cake or baking business. Are you saying the person shouldn't be in business?
No, not at all. No. I'm not saying that. Because remember I made the point around some businesses can scale, some can't. Some businesses want to scale and some can't. So if you're building a business that is based on just making things more efficient, of course that's a business. But whether or not you can then build a big multi-billion naira business from that, that's the question. That's what I'm saying, that is probably not possible. Because if you're just doing something a little bit better, I'm trying to think of an example now, and if I think of one, I'll say it quickly. But so because they're different businesses and they all solve different challenges. That even the efficiency that you're bringing in is actually making something easier for somebody else. So maybe one example is there's a company I buy my groceries from, and you may have heard of her, Sauda Salami, Easy Shop, Easy Cook. So the way that Sauda started her business was that she would, for busy working mothers like myself, you could actually send a list of your groceries and you send it to her by word, email. You do a Word document, email it to her, and they would buy the stuff for you and they would deliver it to your house. And so for me, it was an improvement because I didn't have to go to the market anymore, and she was solving that problem for many working mothers. But then she made her business more efficient in the sense that she now moved from send me a Word document to I now have a platform where you can actually go to my website and you can actually select what you want and pay for it. So that is, it's improving the business, but in doing that, it's an improvement that says that she now has, again, she's put her business online. It wasn't just emails, because before it was just emails. And that's emails is, this person, you send them an email and that's it. But when you have an online food store, you don't have to have an email, you don't need to know the person, anybody can shop. So that was just efficiency in terms of moving from emails into a proper website and online presence. So it's not to say that you don't have a business, but it's whether or not that business can scale and deliver a big profitable business. That's really the question.
All right, so the final question, you sort of know Mrs. Johnson very well, so you asked her the kind of question that will make her speak out. And the question is basically that data is expensive, how can we make it cheaper?
Data is not expensive. Trust me. Whoever asked that question, Google is your friend. Go and Google the price of 1 gig of data in any part of the world. Go and Google it. And compare it to the price of data in Nigeria. It is not expensive. What is expensive is when you compare it to income levels. Even, in the days of the Alliance for Affordable Internet, there was a target that we had then. I was chairperson for a while, and that target was that 1 gigabyte of data should cost no less than, I think it was 5% of average income. And Nigeria met that target. Now, what we did about 3 or 4 years later was that we now reduced that target to say that, in fact, no, because 5% really didn't cover as many people. we now said it had to meet, 1 gigabyte of data should not cost more than 2% of national income. We're not yet there, we're still at the 5%, but many developed countries are at that because the national income average is actually much higher. Much higher. So we met the 5% national income. So if you compare the cost of data in Nigeria, it is actually quite competitive. It's what you need to look at, maybe the quality of that data, which is the speed of that data, the reliability of that data. That's a different story, and it's getting better. But it is not expensive. And when you think about, and I'm speaking like a minister, I shouldn't be. When you think about how much it costs those providers to deliver that data, if you look at the infrastructure, the fiber, the base stations, the generators, all of that, the diesel, I think it's actually amazing that we actually met that 5% target, because it is much more expensive to deliver that data to you than it is for them in other parts of the world. So it's not expensive, and yeah.
Yeah, and that issue of right of way.
Thank you for reminding me about that. Thank you.
It's still there.
It's still there.
Still persisting.
5 years later, it's still there. So
and then she told me it was 5 million naira per kilometer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the same price. So you see, that's why sometimes in rural areas outside the key cities, network is usually poor. Well, on that note, any final words, parting words?
Well, just to say to the entrepreneurs in this room, I'm not an entrepreneur. I've been a corporate person, and I guess maybe I'm a bit of an entrepreneur now. But I think that just a word of encouragement. This is probably one of the toughest places in the world to start a business. It is probably one of the toughest. If the regulators don't get you, somebody's after you. If it's not regulators, it's the local government. It's not the local government, it's federal government policies. Everything is almost out to stop you from building that business. And I recognize that. So when I can sit here and talk about tech and everything, I recognize that. But what I want to say to the entrepreneurs in this room is that, you need to stick at it. Because it's not going to be easy. It's going to be really tough. But the fact of the matter is that we need to build these businesses. There's just so much opportunity. And because I'm working with small businesses now, the small startups, I see the opportunity. I wish I was 20 years old, because if I was 20 years old, I'd never have done Accenture. I just have started my own business and made a lot of money. But I see the opportunity. I see the creativity, the energy of entrepreneurs across the country. And I just believe that if we stick at it, we can get to those businesses. And really, you have to be more ambitious. I think that's really what I don't see in the non-traditional entrepreneurs. Be more ambitious, be more courageous, be bolder. There's more money available now to support your business than there was 10 years ago. There's more money, whether it's VC money or LSETF money or government, but there's just more money available. And the environment, hard as it is actually recognizing the role of entrepreneurs and small businesses more than it ever has done before. So please don't give up, Find a mentor, find somebody that will help you and encourage you through those dark and difficult times. But just go ahead and build those businesses, because that's what this country is that's what's going to deliver Nigeria out of this economic slowdown that we have.
I agree with Mrs. Johnson. And I also run what is called, please clap for her if you want to clap. Yeah, thank you. So I agree with her totally. I also help run Founder Institute in Lagos. And one of the things I would say, when your business is still in the idea phase, is that talk in millions of dollars. So entrepreneurs, you've got to be bold, you've got to be daring. There's money to be made in Nigeria, and you have to fix Nigeria. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. Thank you all.